sometimes people's ministry become stronger. The influence of their ministry is stronger when they're under pressure. Even in the midst of storm, I think it's vital that we not remain silent.
I think sometimes the people in ministry, they feel like because they have a problem, they can't minister to somebody else.
Correct.
And they let Satan hold them down. They're like, well, I messed up here, or I'm struggling with this, so there's no way I can reach somebody else. Because for some reason, I think when you're put in leadership position, especially if you've been in church all your life and all this stuff, you feel like you're supposed to be perfect or something. I know I've struggled with this. We have to remember, I mean, the Bible, God used nothing but messed up people. They were all crazy. Noah was a drunk. David was a murderer and adulterer, yet he's the only man that is only person who's ever been called a man after God's own heart. And he's like what we look to for like what we want our worship to be like, because David worshiped with all of his heart and everything. And so it's those kind of people that we look up to, but for some reason we look up to them and we still think of them as like they're on this pedestal, even though we see in the Bible it shows like all their faults and stuff. And so I think we just have to remember that God is still God even when we screw up, and He's still God even when we got stuff going on in our heart and our mind that we don't understand, and He can still use us, and even through that He can still use us. So.
Sarah talking about that reminds me of actually of the sermon that we had on Mother's Day, and our preacher was talking about how it's your story that can help other people. Like I've noticed a lot with Lecrae, he talks about a lot in his songs. He talks about a lot of stuff that he used to do and what God brought him out of. And I always wondered, I was like, well, you're just talking about yourself. Like you're not, how are you helping anybody? That's how I used to think. And now I'm like, wow, you're helping a lot of people, because a lot of people are going through that same thing, and they see you now. Look at where you are. Look at where God has brought you, and He brought you out of all of that. And it's your story that helps other people, not just like thinking that because you're going through depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts or anything that you can't help other people because, I mean, you have problems of your own. Like, no, your problems help other people because it shows them that no matter what, you can get through something. Like if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts and you talk to someone that day, you're alive that day. And you're there to talk to them that day, and maybe they're going through the same thing as you are, and they're there that day, and you help each other. What is it?
We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So that's a part of like sharing, even in the midst of, is a part of overcoming, because the blood has been shed. But sharing the testimony, like little, and it's the hardest thing, like you said, because especially when you grow up in Christianity and going to church and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why it is, but it's made out to be that everyone is a superhero. And being vulnerable it's a no-go. For some reason, I have no idea why this is the case, but it seems as if you have to be perfect, and it's just not the case. And I think within the last year, like my whole thing with just my ministry and just living life, I'm trying my best to just be authentic and to be real. So wherever I am and whatever I'm going through, I'm like, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. I'm not perfect. Life sucks, just like everybody else's life sucks. And although my life sucking, it looks different than other people sometimes, it still sucks. But how can God use this situation in this current season to reach out to such person? So like, let's say in November, my grandmother passed. In December, I had to preach to a girls' home for a bunch of girls who were displaced because they were abused and things of that nature. So a storm in the boat, I'm just there. I'm distraught. That's my grandmother. So I'm there, and in the midst of it, I'm like, you know what? Just as your life sucked, my life sucks as well. And it's just, and that's exactly what I said, because I'm like, y'all, I had like a wrote out note, Sarah note, I'll write pages and pages of those, and I'll flip, and I like had it on my iPad, and I just turned it off, and I was like, you know what, let's just come from a real place. Life sucks. Do you feel like life sucks? And it was like, yeah, and I was like, I just lost my grandmother, and this is like, the storm, I can't see past it. I would love to walk on the water towards Jesus, but like Peter, I'm gonna sink. So
you got a piece of faith.
I ain't got it right now. So we kind of did like a little dialogue sort of thing, and I went through the whole thing. I said, but through it all, like Jesus, like the fact that I'm still here to tell the story and to share with you guys now, but then being able to share with them and say, you know what, life sucks, but God is still good. You know, He could have taken me out a long time ago. My grandmother was actually supposed to be dead before I was born. I got to spend 23 years with her. What a beautiful moment. I got to drive home and got to spend the last day with her. What a beautiful moment. I got to sing to her right before she passed. And so, even though the season sucks, the storm sucks, there's little things that I guess God winks or God moments that we can kind of look at, and say, you know what, God, even though the storm is raging, you are still good. There's so much other stuff that could be going on, and I feel that we have to share those times, and we have to be aware of what's going on, what God is doing even in the midst of, because sometimes you don't see those moments that God is peeking His eye through, but I mean, if you do get stressed out a lot, just speak up Jesus. He ain't asleep, but metaphorically.
I've seen so many times on so many things, even though you're going through the storm right now, in the moments that you feel God the least, that's when He's doing the most.
Correct.
Things. I've seen that so many times, and I was kind of what? At first, but then as I've gone through so many things and so much depression and just life sucks moments, I've come out of those moments realizing wow, God did a lot to change me, to make me the way I am, putting me through a lot but bringing me out of a lot. So